Hey guys, I'm going to take just a couple minutes to talk about breakfasts. Breakfast, break the fast, the first meal of the day. A lot of confusion around breakfast, but I do think it is important that you have a bit of a good routine when it comes to your morning time, whatever that routine looks like. Now, some people aren't very hungry in the morning. Some people, like myself, am absolutely starving. So it really depends person to person of what your strategy is going to be. For some people, you might have a very light breakfast. You might even skip breakfast altogether. And you might not eat your first meal till midday or even later. So for you, something like intermittent fasting might work very well. Other people, like myself, I feel sickly hungry in the morning if I don't have something to eat. I need to get up extra early so I can sit down and have at least 20 minutes to have my routine breakfast. And I'm also a very routine guy where I can eat pretty much the same thing virtually every single morning, and I really never get sick of it. But it really depends morning to date. It really depends person to person. But most people will be quite routine in their morning food choice of what they have. So for breakfast, there's a lot of different options out there, and it really depends person to person on what you want to have. The most stereotypical kind of options are oats, oat variations, just regular whole rolled oats, and egg, some kind of egg variation. So egg variations obviously have a good source of protein, some healthy fats. I always like to throw some vegetables in there to kind of bulk it up. For me personally, for my first meal, I eat at 5 a.m. and I have an oat-based breakfast. I just have regular rolled oats, water with frozen berries in there, and maybe a few other little things, maybe some almonds or a little more seasoning. But that is basically about it. And that's what I have pretty much all year. Now, this is a very carbohydrate dense breakfast, but I always balance that out with having a very high protein meal the next meal, which is usually for me several hours later around midday. So you have to have that little understanding. If you're having a very high carbohydrate breakfast, make sure you balance it out with the next meal so you're not just having higher carbs on higher carbs, which will make it very hard to hit your protein goal for the day. Another useful tool that people will like to do is have different shakes. Okay, shakes can be very good, a good source of carbs and protein if you're having a protein supplement. I always suggest have the shakes with water as much as you can to try and keep the calories a little bit lower, and try to make them as thick as possible. The thicker the shake, the more it's going to keep you satiated and full and keep you a little more satisfied for a little bit longer versus something that's really watery with milk and a lot of ingredients and that's really sweet, and you'll drink it down like nothing and you'll be hungry relatively shortly. There's also many different other creative ideas out there, such as protein pancakes. Some people like having steak for breakfast. Some people like having a high protein, high fat, like maybe some smoked salmon and avocado on some rice cakes. It really depends person to person of what you're gonna have. But if I were to try to change my breakfast, I want to make subtle, small changes and not try and change everything drastically, because that would be a bit of a shock to your routine. So for myself, if I'm trying to cut a little bit, drop my calories, all I do is instead of having my usual bowl of oats, I'll have maybe 3/4 of the amount. Instead of having 100 grams, I'll have maybe 60 or 70. Perhaps I'll have a few less frozen berries, and maybe I'll have some egg whites on the side where normally I wouldn't have that. So increasing the protein, pulling down the calories on the oats, and a little bit less sugar in there as well. Just changing things slightly. So what you're currently having, if you want to change it up and tighten up on the diet a little bit, focus on maybe just changing a few small variables in what you're having. You don't have to change everything, and then just being consistent on what you're having day in, day out. Where some days you don't eat breakfast, and then some days you do, some days you don't, and your routine is all over the place. Routine is huge. Your body loves routine, especially if you're in a good routine. Then it's really easy to make those small tweaks, then see that change as long as you're consistent and in that good groove.